Good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We are retired New York City police detectives, and tonight we're going to get into the Cassie Carli cause and manner. The results that we've been waiting for 6 months have come in. I got the phone call early this morning from Cassie Carli's sister. I immediately got on the phone, started consulting with Barbara, and here we are. We have our great friend of Crime Time with DutyRon, Barbara Butcher, the retired chief of staff from the New York City Medical Examiner's Office, and our good friend Ed Wallace. How you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Crazy day. You know the deal.
Yeah. So we've been going back and forth, emails, text messages, phone calls, and so forth. Ed, I want to start off with you, but before we get into conversating about this case, I do want to say a special thank you to you, the replay viewers, the live chatters, and everybody who gets involved in Crime Time with DutyRon. You guys are what makes this a great community. So we give thanks and praise for you guys for being respectful to not only the victims and their families, but to us and my guests that I have on. So thank you so much for everything that you guys do. For those of you who are new, because we had a lot of new subscribers, Barbara Butcher, she is a retired New York City Medical Examiner's Chief of Staff. She's the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner's Office. She's a legal medical death investigator when she was active, and she does do consulting in her retirement. So she's here to talk about the results of Cassie Carli's, the non-results of cause and manner. Ed, I want to just start with you first. When you heard about this, I know that you were just like, to me. Want to talk a little bit about, this situation?
Yeah, my head exploded. 6 months, and now we have what the dreaded cuppy we call here in New York City, and Barbara explained this on numerous lives, causes undetermined pending investigation, okay? And that's like the last thing you want ever to happen. And, we were hoping that this toxicology would be the key to how she died. Because we heard, rumors and reports that there were, no outward bruisings, no blunt force trauma, no stab wounds, no gunshot, no strangulation, asphyxiation. All of this was floating around, and based on the camera footage of the abduction and how he grabbed her and put her in the back of his trailer, I was thinking, he gave her an OD on something. Fentanyl, maybe even something more exotic. But here we are, 6 months out. We waited 6 months for this thing, which is, in my opinion, totally unacceptable. Okay. And we have nothing.
Yeah.
And more importantly, that poor family has nothing.
Yeah. I explained to Barbara the sound of Cassie Carli's sister, Ray, was, as the best I could describe, was broken. Her voice was crackling. She was upset, to say the least. Barbara, we talked about this in previous live events. Mm-hmm. Why does this take so long? And how do we come to a situation where you got, in the enormity, in the totality of this whole thing, they release the body to the family. The family cremates the body. And now we're left with holding on to hope. What do we got going on here, Barbara?
Well, a couple of things. You've heard me bitch before about the broken death investigation system in this country, where we're about 40% medical examiners and 60% elected coroners, with differing standards, state to state, county to county, city to city. So here we have County Coroner Dennis Russell, who is manages a funeral home and has been the coroner in Santa Clara County now for 20 years. I don't know anything else about him. I don't know his training. He, in an interview, talked about how when they have a question about a death, when he can't determine the cause and manner, he'll send it for an autopsy to Huntsville, Alabama. There's only 4 counties in Alabama that use a medical examiner. The rest use a coroner. So they sent the body up to Huntsville, and after 6 months, and they sent the toxicology to the Alabama Department of Forensic Sciences. And Mr. Russell, the coroner, has complained in the past about the lack of funding for forensics and that it always takes 6 months if they have to send someone to Huntsville. So that's I guess not a big surprise. But this is just, it's terrible. It's absolutely dismaying. Undetermined means undetermined, period. It can be a homicide, a suicide, an accident, or even a natural death. But most natural deaths don't wind up in a shallow grave in a barn, found after a week after being pushed into a vehicle and, by your so-called boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, rather.
Baby's daddy.
Yeah, baby daddy. So what have we got here? We've got probably a not very sophisticated investigation system. And Ed, that half of what we do is not in the autopsy, it's on the scene. Investigation. Person is on an autopsy table with a gunshot wound to the head. It's either an accident, a homicide, or a suicide. Pathologist doesn't know that without the scene investigators, without people like me and Ed, who are on the ground in the scene looking for everything, every piece of evidence that lends the knowledge to the forensic pathologist who says, okay, gunshot wound to the head, cause of death, manner of death, homicide, suicide, or accident. Here we have nothing. We don't even have a cause of death. So why is that? Is it because it was a week before they found her in Alabama? It was in March. Or no, they found her in April, the first week of April. I don't know what the weather's like. But it's a rural area. Was there scavenger activity? Rats in a barn? Was there decomposition? We don't know. But if there was toxicology to be found, they would have to have found something, some trace. But undetermined, that's where we stand now.
So let's talk about that, Barbara, about the toxicology, because again, it seemed like everything was hindering, the cause and manner were hindering on that specific part of the autopsy. So when they take their samples for tox, are they splitting the samples and saving some for potential analysis later, maybe by a defense expert, or is it one and done?
That
Hello?
depends.
Okay.
If this were New York City, where this happened, you cannot cremate a body until the cause and manner of death have been determined. I guess that's not the case in Alabama because the family cremated the body right after she was released by the ME, before they had a cause and manner of death, damn it. So now we have nothing to go back to. So it's all up to the individual medical examiner. In most jurisdictions, they will make what's called a stock jar, and that's samples of all the tissues, cardiac tissue, lung, liver, fluids are saved for toxicology. Now that stock jar is good for histology, for the microscopy you use to go over the cellular changes in a body. And you can tell a lot from that. But toxicology, it depends on how much fluid they were able to get from the intraocular fluid in the eyeballs, how much blood they were able to get. If it's a minuscule amount, one and done.
One and done.
If they save something, hopefully, at least saved a vial of blood, then, I mean, the only way I see through this, they don't go back on a case. They say, oh, it's undetermined, and that's the end of that, unless the police come up with something.
Now, a typical tox panel, they're looking for alcohol, blood, they're looking for narcotics. What else are they looking for?
Well, there are different panels. When you go to the doctor, you get a so-called, I could get a CBC. That panel has, your blood cells, the size, the hemoglobin, hematocrit, et cetera. Then there's a panel for chemistry. Same thing with toxicology after a death.
Mhm.
There's the so-called drugs of abuse panel, and that lists, the opiates, fentanyl, cocaine, heroin, etc. All the drugs that are commonly abused are in that panel. And that's pretty much done all the time. The alcohol is always done. Anything else, it depends again on the jurisdiction. Like this coroner said, Mr. Russell, they don't spend a lot of money on forensics. Did they do chloroform? Did they do cyanide? Did they do all the other drugs? I don't know. Depends on which panel you want to pay for.
Yeah, exactly. When you're talking toxicology, I mean, you're talking toxic substances, they're very small and very minute in the system and very hard to detect. But the way the video shows her, it looks like, he grabbed her. And so you would think something like chloroform, knocked her out, put her in there. But if you expose somebody to too much chloroform, you can end up killing them. Okay. Yeah. But there should be some evidence. Now, we don't know if they searched for that in the tox. The same thing with fentanyl. A small amount of fentanyl, just a couple of micrograms, is enough to kill somebody. And we don't know. I mean, there should be evidence in there that they should be able to identify those drugs. But now let's say, what other toxic materials could he use? Well, could they use ricin? Could he make ricin and kill it? But that's multiple organ failure. You think that they would notice that on autopsy, and it would take up to 48 hours. And she was like kind of knocked out fast and put in the back of this trailer. So I wouldn't think that. I wouldn't suspect that. But that's very hard to find.
I'm curious too, guys. Barbara, I hold that thought. Wouldn't they want to throw the kitchen sink at this thing, being that they didn't have a lot of video evidence after he left Juan Pagodo's? When he was in that parking lot with her, there was cameras. That's confirmed. But once they left that location, everything else is not on video. Wouldn't it behoove the medical examiner staff and whoever they jobbed this out to check for every little possibility, just like Ed and yourself were speaking about? All of these, you said it's a matter of whether they want to pay for it. But we're trying to seek justice here. That's what we're all in this for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, yes. We would throw the kitchen sink at it and test for every single thing you could possibly imagine. But realistically, money talks. And, there are some jurisdictions, I have no idea what the budget is for Alabama, but some jurisdictions have, let's say, a budget of $15,000 for autopsies for the year. How many autopsies is that? That's 3, maybe 4. If you stretch your money, then how much is it for toxicology? So I'll keep yelling on this bandwagon until somebody on the federal level starts standardizing medical legal death investigation in this country. And then they say, well, dead people don't vote. Yeah, their relatives do. They certainly do. Yeah. And these people are heartbroken. It's terrible.
What was the thought that I interrupted you on, Barbara? I'm sorry.
I don't know. It's okay.
We were talking about toxicology and, what other substances and tests they could have run. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, ricin, I think it takes some brains to build that. And this guy, how do you say his name? Scavarello? Yeah. Doesn't look like a real smart guy. Sorry.
Yeah, Marcus Spanevelo. Yeah, Marcus Spanevelo.
I wouldn't go that far, Barbara, because a Walking Dead zombie actress made it in her house and framed her husband for it. But anyhow, yeah, that was in Oxford, Mississippi. You can look the case up; it's hilarious. But again, that would create multiple organ failure over 48. It wouldn't knock out somebody immediately. No, yeah. I mean, and so that I would rule that out. But it would have to be something that was extremely fast acting, like a fentanyl, a carfentanil. Or, there was people in the chat talking about, well, he could have injected her and caused an arrhythmia and then a heart attack. And, well, they should have been able to find that on autopsy. They should have been able to find the heart attack on the autopsy. And then, I just like, I'm baffled that we're here 6 months now, waiting and we have a copy.
Yeah.
And the first thing that Ed asked me is, did they intern her body? And unfortunately, they opted to cremate her. And I found out from a good source that they were reassured that they had enough, enough saved evidence from this exam.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you talk about what gets saved in these, like you said, in New York City? Cause and manner of death has to be determined before a family or the loved ones get the decedents back, right, for interment, correct?
No, they can have the decedent back, but they can't do cremation until we've completed everything, until we have a cause and manner of death.
Which makes
Especially in a
sense.
suspected homicide.
Yeah.
Right.
Any suspicious death, we're not going to allow cremation.
So there's no standard across the United States for that. Each state
No.
makes.
Yeah.
Now, and there are certain religious exemptions, but those religions don't allow cremations. We have to get the body back to people of the Jewish faith and the Muslim faith within a certain time frame for religious reasons to get it into the ground. But that doesn't mean we can't exhume it afterwards. If we got something like this happening, toxicology comes back, and when we're hanging our hat on toxicology to give us the cause and manner. I almost said cause and origin, like I was doing a fire investigation. I got to stop that. Okay. But so now we don't have that. We don't have that opportunity. We can't exhume a body from a grave and take more samples for toxicology. We have to rely on whatever this coroner's office did.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'm hoping is that an adequate autopsy was done, that sufficient samples were saved, and that the family has the ability, and it's not cheap, to hire a private forensic pathologist. Can they do a second autopsy? No, of course not. But
Not now.
a private forensic pathologist can go over the tissue slides, can go over the findings, the photographs, may see something that, their experience, they're more familiar with than the Huntsville County Coroner's Office. I don't know.
Right. All those histology slides should still be there, no?
Oh yeah, histology they have to keep.
Right.
I mean, hopefully, Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully they kept a stock jar of organs for further sampling. And hopefully they've got toxicology that they've got samples of blood or ocular fluid, intraocular fluid left, and they could send those to like NMS labs where they run a complete panel. Not cheap, but if the family has hired an attorney, maybe they can start subpoenaing all the records and get on this.
There's some people in the chat that are confused. Like they're asking about the slides, they're asking about the ocular. Like I guess some people aren't understanding what you guys are speaking about. We can.
Yeah, well, Barbara is in terms of the ocular fluids, she's in the vitreous fluids from the eye for toxicology. And Barbara, you can talk. And then Barbara, tell them what the histology slides are.
You take every autopsy, you take blocks of tissue from every single organ. And then you do histology, which is it's sent to a lab. And those organs, they take very, very thin, microscopically thin sections from the organs and make glass slides out of them so that now we can do microscopy. With the microscope, you can look at blood, at liver tissue, and you can see if there was a poisoning. It would show up in the liver in certain poisons, like antifreeze. Mm-hmm. So you'd see certain cellular changes in the body, and you don't see that when you do the gross dissection. Opening the body and just looking at the liver, can't tell much. Under the microscope, you can tell a hell of a lot more. Mm-hmm. Now, the fluids, the intraocular or vitreous fluid it's what's inside your eyeball. That's a really good place to get toxicology from. The fluid is clear and pure and sterile, and so we draw that fluid with a needle. We also take blood, blood from the heart, blood from the femoral arteries, in different places in the body, because poisons have weird ways of acting. I'm not a toxicologist, so it's a complex science.
Great. Was there any other questions that our
Yeah,
audience was?
Yeah, I was just looking at the chat, and that's why I wanted to say that, because some people were getting, I guess they were getting lost in what you guys were talking about. But this is fascinating information, because this gives hope, because perhaps they have saved enough of tissue samples, blood, and things of that nature, the ocular fluid, you know, the vitreous fluid, and things of that nature, where if they have an attorney and they can request it, because I'm sure that the family just can't go knocking at the door and say, hey, we want, you know, an independent, you need to do this through legal channels. I think that's why you were referring to if they had an attorney, correct, Barbara?
Yeah, I mean, you can go and hire a private pathologist on your own, but you need to know all the records you have to demand. Families commonly say, I want the autopsy report. And so they'll get exactly that, which is about 5 pages of description of what was done and what was seen on the autopsy. But what you really want is the entire file from that case. That's the coroner's notes, police notes. You want all the photographs from the scene and from the autopsy. You want toxicology, you want histology, you want the brain, you know, the brain tissue samples. That takes about 2 weeks to get. So you want every single thing in that report. And that's what a good private forensic pathologist will go over.
The brain, the kidneys, the liver,
Everything.
hair samples.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything.
And this is all standard, because for me, I get confused about this. Is this a standard operating homicide investigation? You know, you have somebody in. Is this stuff that's practiced? Is there a standard for this? Is what I'm trying to say, across the United States, or does everybody just do it their own way?
Well, the standard among medical personnel or among forensic pathologists, yes, there are certain protocols that are meant to be followed. Does everybody do it? No. But again, when we're in this half coroner system, half medical examiner, we don't know what the Huntsville coroner does, what their protocols are.
Right.
I'm going to assume that their pathologist is a forensic pathologist and not a hospital pathologist.
How will the family know that?
They should ask.
Yes, yeah. You know, I was disturbed about the quote that you gave from the coroner, where he said, and he's a funeral director, if he can't determine the cause and manner of death, then he has to get a forensic pathologist.
Yeah, well, that's right.
You're not a medical doctor. You shouldn't be making that call. If this is a coroner case, because like a death of a person that is under medical care, well, the physician treating that individual can sign the death certificate if it's not suspicious, and you know, if it's related to something he was treating the patient for. Okay, so those kind of cases typically don't go to the medical examiner's office or the pathologist. So, I mean, if it's going to there, then you would think that you would want a pathologist to get hands on and eyes on these victims.
Absolutely.
And have a trained medical professional make the call, as opposed to a non-trained medical professional and unlicensed medical.
That's right. And yet in 60% of the country, that's just the way it is. It is an elected coroner with all the widely varying qualifications. The Las Vegas coroner has tons of qualifications, very well trained people. The Los Angeles coroner, yes. But Huntsville, Alabama, I have no idea.
How about New York City?
New York City has forensic pathologists, no coroners. Nobody's elected.
Upstate New York, we have coroners, but not here in the city.
New York City, yep. Tara Ellis, who's a great friend, a channel member, and a great supporter, she says, in the event that they keep investigating and find something new, can they change the cause and manner from undetermined to determined?
Sure. And that's, the police department, God bless them, that now they have the dreaded CUPPY. So in New York, we commonly, the phrase is cause unknown pending police investigations. That's how the medical examiner says it. In other words, we can't find anything. You guys do what you can. Have I seen that very often? Hardly ever. Hardly ever.
That's right.
The case I can think of is when I investigated a mummy. He was completely eaten by rats except for the outer bits of skin, which had mummified. He looked like dried leaves in a pile. And the interesting thing was that there was a bullet rattling around in his rib cage. Aha, you say, there's your cause of death. No, that could have been from a war. That could have been an accident, playing around with his friends. Could have been a suicide, homicide. An accident could have been anything. So in that case, we had no evidence on the outside and no evidence on the inside. We had a pile of leaves and a bullet. That's it. So that was undetermined.
Yeah.
See, now, in this case, it's going to come down to the police investigation. Now, hopefully, God willing, somebody knows what he did. Somebody knows what the baby's daddy did here. And he talked to somebody before he did it. He planned it. He acquired whatever it is that he used to knock her out and drag her into the back of his trailer. And God willing, this person comes forward, or the police identify him and gets the information that's needed. And then if they have saved some material, we go at that material again, looking for whatever it was determined in the investigation.
Yeah, but this is going to be a tough one, even to indict him.
Well, that's the thing too, Barbara. They just stopped the trial that was supposed to start tomorrow, right? They stopped it, but he wasn't charged with homicide.
He was charged with tampering with evidence, and also tampering with human remains. He's got that charge on him. Destruction of evidence, which is a cell phone, which he threw outside the car. Giving false information to law enforcement on a missing person case. So those are the 3/4 charges: tampering with evidence and tampering with the human remains. So
where's the kidnapping charge?
Yeah.
Okay, where's the false imprisonment, unlawful imprisonment? But regardless, those charges could have went forward. They don't rely on the cause and manner of death. They're unrelated to that. It would only be a homicide charge or a murder charge or a manslaughter charge that would hinder on the information from the medical examiner's office, or in this case, the coroner's office.
Correct. Hey, I want to get to the super chat before it goes away. Murder Candy Podcast. This is Shannon Avery. Avery Shannon. I mean, she says, I'm in Alabama. So she lives in Alabama. If I pass suspiciously, get my body right to an ME in Florida, DutyRon. I think that you'd probably be safer in New York. I'm not sure about Florida. Florida's got many different jurisdictions. So
no, Florida's good. They're pretty good.
All right.
Unfortunately, you don't have to. You don't get to pick and choose.
Yeah, exactly. You're stuck there. Delana from it just went away. There it is. So Delana says, thank you, DutyRon, Ed, and Barbara. We appreciate everything that you guys give us information-wise. So thank you for that, Delana. Where else? There's a couple of other ones I want to just get to before we move on. Anthony Candela, he sent in a super chat, and there was a big message there. It says, thank you, Barbara, DutyRon, and Ed. Justice for Cassie, and praying for her family. I hope this mope gets what he deserves. He's a jailer upstate New York. So there goes the mope conversation.
Love it.
Mopery, my favorite crime.
Ed just puts up Nancy Furman super sticker. Yes, felonious mopery, we used to call it.
Yeah, that's flashing statues. Okay.
So Barbara, I have Rayanne's texting me, so she's watching right now. So she says, we're wondering if there's any other substance that she could have been forced to ingest. Example, chloroform, GHB, etc., that may have dissipated within the 6 days it took to recover her. So it was 6 days between 3/27 on Sunday, 2022 to 4, I believe it was 4/2 or remains found 4.2 or 4.3. So she says, is there any way that that could have dissipated in those 6 days? She thinks it's been asked, but she's still curious. And thank you very much if you guys could answer that.
That's a great question. You see, even I was assuming. I said that she disappeared on March 27th and was found a week later. I said, in a barn. So I'm thinking, oh, she's dead a week. No, it's possible she was dead a day, 2 days. We don't know what he did. Did he hold her for a few days? If so, then sure. Chloroform, injecting someone, I think Ed mentioned insulin, or someone mentioned insulin.
Potassium.
Yeah.
Yeah, insulin too.
Yeah, insulin, you could give somebody an overdose and put them into a coma very easily.
Right, but you think that they would have seen that.
Right. One of our users on
competent autopsy was done.
One of the users on Crime Time with DutyRon sent in that question about insulin. I guess maybe she might have experience in that, but she said you could be overdosed with insulin. Now, Ray's question is good because does these substance dissipate in the body? And I think we asked that in other cases, and you had answered to that. It depends, again, on the time. We don't know exactly. Was it the full 6 days? Did he murder her right away, or did he murder her, like you said, a day or two before?
Most substances, leave the body, or they're processed by the liver or the kidneys, and they leave the body within 24, 48, or 72 hours, depending on their half-life, etc. But once the person is dead, the clock stops. Absolutely. Whatever's in the body stays in the body. So, subject to the vagaries of decomposition, of course. As the tissues decompose, you lose the ability to get those drugs or extract them readily and test them.
Here's the second part of Ray's question, and thank you for answering that, Barbara. Is there a time limit / statute to file murder charges once the forensic results are back? Like, in other words, she's saying, is there a stop? Is there a watch stop? Is the time ticking? Do they have to race against the clock?
No, homicide is the only charge that doesn't have a statute of limitations.
No.
I think actually, though, did they change rape? I'm not sure.
Well, no, what they've been doing now, Barbara, if they get DNA from a rape, they indict the DNA, and
exactly
the clock stops.
Yeah.
So we got a question here. What about carbon monoxide poisoning? Well, you would see that right away. Typically, people who die from carbon monoxide poisoning have this cherry red appearance on their skin during the observation. Now, yes, she's in the back of a trailer. The trailer's being towed by a vehicle. I mean, he could have knocked her out with something, and then the carbon monoxide coming from the vehicle's exhaust gets trapped in the trailer where she is. But then they should have seen that, and they should have found evidence of that.
Yeah, and they'll run a carboxyhemoglobin levels on toxicology, only if they suspect it. You got to suspect it first.
Yeah.
It's not done unless there's, that suspicion. So
now we have Cassie Carli's family. We have the sister Ray and her brother and many of her high school friends and lifelong friends on an interview stating that Cassie Carli, our victim here, stated to the family, if anything happened to me, it's going to be Marcus Spanevelo. So those statements were said to their family on numerous occasions. If I ever come up dead, this guy did it. That's telling right there that she said that to them. And here we are, fast forward in 2022, trying to get justice for her. But, I have a small clip that I'm going to play once we commence with the second half of the show, where you're going to hear both her sister and her brother and her friends on television make that statement.
Now, our suspect, he was in construction, and was he also in any type of lawn maintenance or anything like that?
I don't have the details on it, but I believe that he was in some type of trade where he did work. I'm gonna
because that barn is associated with work that he had done at. Okay, I'm just like spitballing here, thinking, because if he had strong insecticides inside of the trailer, uh, in the heat, in the sun, warming up that trailer and warming up those insecticides, commercial grade insecticides, they're organophosphate based insecticides. And, if that trailer then gets engulfed with that, or even chlorine, and heats up and vaporizes, she could succumb to that. But again, I would think the autopsy would show that if in her system, because this is going to be metabolized while she's alive. So
yeah, that's a good one, Ed. The organophosphates, the effect on the body is neurological commonly.
Right.
So it would not be an obvious finding. It would be something I would assume you could find on histology, but that's a really good point.
Well, Barbara, the family said that the coroner is going to send a typed report to the father, to Cassie Carli's father. So Ray is going to get a hold of that, and she's going to share it with us privately. We're not, obviously talk about it on the air or anything like that. But inside that report, what information do they have to give, or what do they give the family? Just out of curiosity.
Well, it should be a summation of the relevant external facts, if you will. Body found in shallow grave, approximately time of death, approximately X days before. Then they'll give the overview of the external. Is there decomposition? Is there evidence of vermin feeding, rats, dogs, coyotes, whatever? And then they'll do a complete survey of the external body. You should be looking at every bit of skin for puncture marks, for small bruises. And then we have, the internal findings, every single organ. In a case like this, where we're really concerned with trauma, there should be a dissection of the posterior muscles of the back and the legs to look for bruising or ecchymoses, bleeding under the skin. I see you put a question in about, she said, shallow grave for 1 week. Could strangulation show if hyoid bone still intact? Great question.
I don't know why that keeps happening.
Strangulation's problem. So we don't know what the condition of her body was. If for some reason she was fresh in the grave, we could see bruising on the neck, abrasions, fingernail marks from the victim, not from the perpetrator, but the victim trying to pull away somebody's hands. And the hyoid bone being intact, sometimes it doesn't break during a strangulation, particularly in young people where the hyoid bone is very flexible. It's still in a more cartilaginous stage. Right. As you get older, like mine's probably as brittle as a turkey bone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what about the petechial hemorrhaging?
If the eyes are present, we should see petechial hemorrhaging in the whites of the eyes, the sclera.
And then the inside of the lips and so forth, if that's there. Again, the competent autopsy would have found that, you would think. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And I don't want to, rush to judgment on this, because they may have received a body that was extensively decomposed, extensively eaten. I hate to use that word, but by vermin, rats, dogs, anything.
Raccoon.
If they raccoons. If they received a body like in that condition, that's a really tough autopsy. But a good forensic pathologist will push through that and find what needs to be found.
Yeah, this is all very disturbing for the true crime community, and obviously for the family. I mean, they are, been waiting 6 months to get answers just on this tox report. And, I'm sure that they had the answers in regards to their findings in their autopsy, as soon as just a week later, you know, or if not sooner.
I'd like to
So-
get an inventory of what was in that trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. You know, many people don't realize it too. You know, you can die from exposure to helium. You can die, well, obviously, hydrogen sulfide. You know, if you've ever seen the book, I don't think many in our chat have ever read the book Final Exit.
I hope.
Yeah, yeah, most people won't be reading that. People that do read it are looking to commit suicide. So, and it teaches you how to commit suicide and gives you various methods to do it and have an open, quote unquote, casket. You know, and one of them is hydrogen sulfide. Another is helium. Another is nitrous oxide. So I'd like to see what the hell was inside of that trailer. You know, did he have any chemicals? Did he have any gases in there? You know, did he, you know, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what in the hell could have killed her and not leave any traces of it.
Yeah.
I'm just miffed.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's chlorine, you're absolutely right. If there's chlorine in the truck, that's very volatile. You know, it can be very volatile if organic substances, sweat, blood, water, anything gets in chlorine powder, it off gases.
Anybody who's ever owned a swimming pool and has like a 5-gallon bucket of chlorine tabs, and you let that heat out in the sun, and then you open that lid to get a few tabs to put in the chlorinator, and you get that burst coming out of there, it'll knock you on your ass.
Oh yeah.
And you'll be coughing, and snot will start running down your nose. Your eyes will start tearing. Okay.
All right, we're beyond the 30 minutes that I promised Barbara, and every time I do it to her, she probably doesn't believe me anymore. She thinks I'm a whole.
No, it's not you, Ron. It's that I really enjoy talking to the participants here on the chat and you guys. It's always good to see you, and this is interesting stuff, but it's important stuff more than anything. This family needs some answers.
Yeah, I'm going to just go to Barbara. Thank you so much, because, you know, through you, we not only learn, but we get to know all the ins and outs of this business. And most of these folks here that are following true crime, we hear about missing people that most of the times turn into death investigations. We don't get the inside, behind the scenes look, and that's what you provide, and we appreciate it tremendously. This came in on DutyRon.com for Mrs. Barbara Butcher. At what point does the body stop metabolizing drugs in the system? And we answered this earlier, but I'm going to answer it. I'm going to ask it again. At what point does the body stop metabolizing drugs in the system? And at the time of death, ? And is it possible for them to release these toxins post-mortem? Thank you, Jess Jewell. Thank you, Jess.
Good question. When you ingest any drug, the metabolic action begins immediately, and it stops immediately on death. These are all sensitive chemical reactions that require multiple organic substances within the living body. It's a very sophisticated system that keeps us from poisoning ourselves every time we have a martini. So it stops immediately on death. But can those substances can continue to degrade just by the environment? So good question.
Here's one more, and then we'll wrap it up, and I'll ask maybe one or two more from the chat there. This is to you, Barbara, or Ed. When undetermined cause of death, cause and manner, will they continue to try to find an exact cause and manner, or do they just give up? What kinds of situations could lead to an undetermined cause and manner of death? Thank you for staying on top of this. Judy Lyons. Thank you, Judy.
I guess that's a combo answer. The medical examiner will stop right there. The coroner will stop right there once they've said undetermined.
Right. And then it gets punted.
And we hit that ball over to the police field.
Right. Yeah.
We wait for them to bring us something new.
Yep. The MEs punt it right back to us, and we're like, oh boy, here we go. And now, you know, we got to work a little harder. Because that case can't be closed.
That's right.
You know, so we have an open case, and our bosses are going to be all over us to close this case. All right. So we have to conduct a more thorough investigation and dig deeper into it, find witnesses, re-interview people, get into the search history on this person's internet. That's another big thing with this guy. What was he searching? Did he, do we have a digital footprint on this guy where he went and visited? Like, for instance, we had that famous case from Florida, right? Where a mom researched how to knock out her child with Benadryl so that she can go out and party with her friends and didn't have to babysit because she would knock out her kid. Well, she overdosed her kid, but she got away with it.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And I know, knowing you, if you got a copy back from the medical examiner, you'd be in that van from the get-go, swabbing every single every piece of that trailer for DNA, blood, organics, everything.
I'd be cutting up the wood floorboards to see what's soaked into it. Send that to the lab and see what chemicals are in this wood. I'd be swabbing surface, taking air samples. I want to know everything that happened inside of that trailer.
Yeah. Well, this case was investigated by the sheriff, to the best of my knowledge, and we don't know if the state police were involved or the local sheriff or what happened, or county police. So we'll see.
So for those of you who are coming in late here, yes, Dennis Russell is 22 years in his position as the county coroner. We spoke in the beginning of this live, you'll have to go back and review, that we hope that a forensic pathologist assisted in this in this autopsy, and it wasn't completed in whole by Dennis Russell. But we don't know. The only way we'll know is when the family, I guess, gets the signed copy or narrative of what was done. Is that correct, Barbara?
That's right. And, Kristen Gustafson just put in a great question. If the autopsy shows time of death in Florida, will law enforcement in Florida be the lead, or is Alabama taking the lead? How does a multi-state investigation determine lead investigators? What a great question.
Awesome.
We know that if wherever the body is found, that's where the medical examiner will take jurisdiction. So it is a Alabama case. Alabama coroner takes it. But Florida, where was the van when she was pulled into the van?
The trailer that was in Florida.
Yeah, Juan Pagoda's over in Navarre. Yeah, in Florida.
So now, Ed, you know how this goes. We've got multiple jurisdictions. So Alabama's like, well, I don't know where it is. And Florida's like, well, we didn't see her. The body's over by you. So
right.
Well, you know what?
It was like what in Nassau County, when I worked in Queens, we were right on the border of Nassau. If someone would get shot in Nassau and tumble over into the city, we would have that fight. Like, okay, well, where did this incident take place? Or vice versa. We'd have, somebody that would have a gun battle in the confines of the 105, and they'd go into the 5th precinct, Nassau County, and they would be like, this is your bag of shit. No, this is your bag of shit. It would go back and forth like that. Ed, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, I don't know, I lost it. Went in this way and it flew out this way, and no amount of ginkgo biloba is going to bring it back.
Okay. All right. Well, so that's what we're talking about here is, Alabama and Florida, she was recovered in a shallow grave in Alabama. So,
it came back to me. If they couldn't do a cause and manner, there's not going to give you a time of death.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I guess the point is moot at this point. If they can't give you a time of death because they can't give you cause and manner, then they wouldn't be able to say, okay, she died in Florida because she died at this. From the time we found the body, we suspect she died this amount of time earlier. Okay. If they could do that, then that they may have a case in Florida for the homicide. Right, in Florida. Well, Florida still clearly has a lot of crimes that they can prosecute here.
Yeah. This is going to be a bitch. Multiple jurisdictions, no answers.
Yeah. And the first thing you said to me, Barbara, is, did did they cremate her? And when I told you yes, you were like, no. Yeah.
Yeah. We both
So,
said the same thing, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Did
Yeah.
they cremate her? And I said, oh, there goes a second chance.
It's unfortunate.
Anyway,
I'm going to put you guys in touch, Barbara, you with the family and vice versa. And Ed already, she's already got all your info. They may just have basic questions because their heads are spinning, as you can imagine at this point. So,
yeah.
Barbara,
Glad to help.
thank you so much. And when's your book coming out? Let's talk a little bit about your book, Barbara.
June of 2023, and I see that Smitty asked here. He said, I something like, I'll pay for a draft. I know it's agonizing. I can't wait for it to come out either. Someone else said there should be a Barbara TV show.
Yeah. Bitching with the butcher.
Yes, good news, guys. I did sell the option to a studio.
Oh, there you go.
Ed, I wonder if you
look out, Patricia Cornwell. Here comes Barbara.
Ed, I wonder if you and I will have a cameo appearance in that studio.
You're damn right. You're damn right. You would. I need senior advisors for the show. So
I know. Bill every once in a while says "bitching with Bill," right? I think "bitching with the butcher" is much better.
Oh yeah, I think that'll go over better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so in June.
Thank you, Barbara. Well,
thank you guys.
We're looking forward to it, Barbara. Thank you so much for being here. Me and Ed are going to continue on a little bit more with this. Thank you. This is Barbara Butcher. She's a retired New York City Medical Examiner's Chief of Staff. She spent 24 or so years investigating deaths. So thank you so much for being here, Barbara, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Barbara.
Guys.
Great
Stay healthy, everyone.
Thank you.
Amen.
There she goes, Barbara Butcher. So she said she had a half hour to spend with us, and we kept her for 52 minutes and 17 seconds. So, Ed, let's say hello to our chatters. We have been concentrating on Barbara because her time is so valuable. So let's say hello to some of our live chatters quickly. Follow the grain in your wood, in your own wood. Thank you so much for being here. Hello, Doodlebug, Donna, Dixie Chicken, 1969. That was a pretty good year, even though I was born in 64.
It's my Mustang.
Yeah, 69 is badass. Delana, thank you for being here.
There was a question there. You just
hold on. I'm doing the Evelyn Woodhead Sped Redden course.
Okay.
Where was the question? Did I miss it?
Yeah. Let me back up. Hold on. You had it up for a brief moment in time. I'm not a speed reader like that. Okay. Here's the question. Rose wrote, so does this mean that since the cause and manner of death cannot be determined, does that mean that this guy will get away with murder?
No.
Right now, he can't be charged with murder or manslaughter, but
it doesn't mean
it's pending police investigation.
Right.
It just means we got to do more work.
Right. If they have substantial circumstantial evidence against him, which we don't know, we don't have access to the case file. We don't know what forensics they have on the computers, on his cellular devices, and all of his tech. None of this is available to us. And as a matter of fact, we don't even know if Alabama has DOT cameras or anything of him loading or unloading her remains. So all of this is unknown at this time. So I want to play this little clip. This is only 3 minutes. This is Cassie Carli's brother, sister, and friends talking about the volatile relationship that she had with Marcus. And this was a while ago. This was in April, I believe. So let me share the screen. And let's play this little clip, and then Ed will rock and roll after this. All right, here we go. It's just a few minutes.
Yes, that the text messages my father received from.
Get the share count up on social media. And Beach, 37-year-old Cassie Carli. I want to hone in on the phone for just another second, because Cassie's father received text messages from Cassie's phone. I think it was at some point that night, and that was, I think that was a bit alarming to the entire family. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you've told me that was alarming to the entire family, correct?
Yes. Yeah. That the text messages my father received from my sister's phone were nothing of typical speak, my sister would have said, especially the claims of car and phone troubles at the same time. She would have walked to the nearest gas station if she had to before getting Marcus for any type of help in a situation like that.
Something else I've looked at with these text messages recently is if you look at the way the punctuation is and the verbiage, he slips up, I believe, in some of these text messages and leaves out words like he typically does in his own text messages. It sounds like him.
And I want to just backtrack for our audience, because I know you guys have been talking about this so much, but what you are saying is that you do not believe that the text messages about the car being broken down, those text messages that went from Cassie's phone to the phone of her father were not sent by Cassie and
We
was
do
sent.
not.
And you're
We do not believe that those messages were sent by Cassie.
and who do
At
you believe
all.
sent them?
Marcus,
We have
He did.
Marcus.
She's been
the last
telling
person
me,
to see her alive.
she's been telling me for the last 2 years that this dude has been threatening her. He's pulled a gun out. She's worried. She's never wanted me to come around. And she's always said, if something happens to me, it's him. And
Cassie wouldn't leave her daughter. The minute I
Never.
knew that she didn't have her purse, her phone, her car, or her child, we knew. We know.
I'm
We're
gonna-
just
So you heard it right there. Basically they said, if she said, if something happens to me, it's Marcus. Now that comment that you just put up on the screen, Ed, that was a good one. Won't his and her DNA be intertwined? On
Yeah,
the body and
I
clothes?
mean, his DNA has to be on her body or clothes. Yeah, but it's a moot point. I mean, they have a child in common, and there's going to be this interaction. So you would expect to find her DNA on him, his DNA on her, and so forth. It doesn't help establish the cause and manner of death, and that's what we need. We needed, but now we're not getting that to charge with murder or manslaughter. So now we have to do more thorough police investigation, and then we can then give our findings to the coroner and say, hey, this is what we found, okay, and this is how we believe it impacts the case now, and this is how we establish probable cause that it is in fact a murder,
Right.
or in his terminology, medical legal terminology, is homicide just means death at the hands of another. Okay, but there could be justifiable homicide, which is not a crime, and then there's crime homicide, which we call murder or manslaughter, or in some cases felony murder, which in the course of a felony somebody dies.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Well, the good news here is in my notes, and I have extensive notes on this case. We know that the FBI and a multi-state agency approach, Alabama, Birmingham, you got authorities on the ground, you got the Alabama State Police, you got Florida. Just having the FBI and their resources initially early on in this case on the set is encouraging because of their ability to collect evidence and so forth. But we don't know who was the lead. I never really got clarity on who was the lead in this case, Ed, and I don't think that anybody ever came out. We looked at Santa Rosa County Sheriff Bob Johnston. He was very vocal at saying that we want to see him behind bars for the rest of his life or get the needle, and he said preferably the needle. Remember that statement, Ed?
Yeah, I do. I do remember it. I know he took a lot of flack for it, but he called it as he saw it. But you would think that the feds would step in because we have interstate travel, kidnapping.
Right.
Okay, and you think that they would open up a case, indict him in a federal grand jury, and bring him to trial.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't say he didn't kidnap her. Okay, and he can't say that they can make a very strong case. That he put that body in a shallow grave in that barn because he worked on that barn. He knew that barn. She had nothing to do with that barn. She
Right.
knows nothing about that barn.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You know, I agree, and this statement is coming up quite a bit all over Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I saw it in the groups, and Tina Garrett says as well. What? She was in a shallow grave. How can it not be murder? Well, you need
Well-
to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt in the court of law that Marcus Spanevelo did in fact cause the death. He did in fact murder Cassie Carli. If they cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury of his peers, then they'll get a not guilty, and they're not going to go after him and throw these charges out there without substantial piles of evidence that lead to beyond a reasonable doubt that he did do this. Am I correct, Ed, or am I off base here?
No. I mean, here's an example. You're on base. Okay, here's an example. You're at a party with a bunch of friends, and unbeknownst to you, one of them has some illegal drugs. That person overdoses. Okay. Now, the people at the party panic. They don't know what to do. They don't call 911 like they should, because no one has done anything wrong unless they sold that person the drugs. And in that case, then you're going to get charged with murder for selling the drugs to the person that overdosed. That's what we do back here in New York. But anyhow, besides that point, they panic, don't call 911, and they take that body and they dispose of it. Okay. There's a case where nobody murdered this person, and nobody in the party was involved in the murder of the person or sold them the drugs, and the person OD'd, and they went and improperly took this body and disposed of it, or put it in a shallow grave, or just to get it out of the house, or whatever the case may be. And so they would be guilty of tampering with a body. Okay, they would be guilty of tampering with evidence and so forth and so on, but they're not guilty of murder or homicide.
Right. Yeah. No, that was a good analogy there, Ed. And a lot of people don't understand that. They just think, well, all things point to Marcus Spanevelo. He's got to be guilty. We got to charge him with murder. Let's go get him. Charge. Let's go get him. It doesn't work that way. Karen, Legal Minded Friends, she's an attorney in the UK. She sent that message in. Could she have been buried alive? But I think, Barbara, we didn't ask her that question, but I think, Ed, you can answer that question.
There would be evidence of that if she was. First of all, it's a shallow grave.
Right.
All right. So there's not that much dirt on top of her. That's typically the definition of a shallow grave.
She would have ingested the dirt, right?
Right. But they would have found that in autopsy. I mean, you would have seen in the GI tract, or also if it was aspirated. I mean, you could see it in the respiratory tract as well if they were got down into the lungs and so forth.
I got an answer for you about Marcus Spanevelo. Yes, he was a landscape contractor, and that's what he was doing on that property prior to her discovery there. He was working there. Yeah,
so he could have any number of commercial chemicals used in that industry that in large quantities could be cause someone to what we call what's the definition I'm looking for? Hold on. Immediately dangerous to life and health, IDLH, and could cause someone's death if exposed to at high concentrations.
Yeah.
So again, but you would think that you would at the medical examiner's office or the office conducting the toxicology, might want to ask, hey, what could this person potentially have been exposed to? And that's why you would need a really good inventory of what was in the back of that trailer. Yeah.
And I'm hoping that they have all of that. I'm hoping that they have what they need to go after him and charge him. They today and I think yesterday were going to be jury selection on these charges that I read off to you. The 4 charges: the tampering with human remains, tampering with evidence, destruction of evidence, giving a false information to law enforcement on a missing person case. And this is out of Santa Rosa County Sheriff's, the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office. He was going to be standing trial for this, and they postponed it for a week. I don't know if that's just a cooling off period or a time for them to take a breather, maybe to regroup and to now get their ducks in order. I don't know if they knew this was coming, Ed, and I'm sure that we as law enforcement know that a lot of times the medical examiner, the district attorney. We all share information with each other behind the scenes, and we don't talk about it publicly. So maybe they did know about this, and they have a plan of action to go with here legally to go and have justice served.
I'm sure the prosecutors are heavily involved as well. And they're talking from the, Alabama and in Florida, not so much Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee has anything here.
TBI was involved a little bit in this one.
Right, but I don't think they have any charges here.
No.
But to answer Lacey's questions again about writing a book, I've written 4 textbooks. They're available on Amazon.com.
Should I be linking those in our descriptions, Ed?
If you want, you can link them. But they're written for the practitioner in crime scene investigations.
Oh, wait a minute. Josh just sent me a message. He said they are linked. They've been on DutyRon.com for a long time.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Josh, where you been? I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, Josh is a busy cat. I want to say thank you to Katina, who is a Patreon supporter, channel member, everything, all of the above. Katina's been a friend for a long, long time here, and thank you for being here. Meg Lowe, I saw her jump in. She's my San Diego friend. I'm a little pissed off at her because San Diego Padres beat the shit out of my Mets and embarrassed us and sent us home. So let me just say something to you, San Diego.
Oh, hell no.
You better not do that again to my Mets. But yeah, they kicked our ass.
Hey, I got to talk about that game last night because when the Mets coach came out and talked to the umpires, right? Okay, that pitcher's ears were bright red.
They were
right, and nobody else's ears in the infield or even the catcher who was wearing a mask ears looked like that.
Are you saying that forensically there's something going on here, Ed?
Well, it's been known that some of these pitchers juice up their ears with liquid heat or a Bengay type substance, a muscle strength, a muscle cream, and that could cause those ears to turn bright red. Now, I'm not sure it's being used. Depending on who you talk to, I'm not sure it's being used to put some extra oomph on the ball.
Liquid heat,
but it could be used to help with his concentration, or I've heard these things. But I mean, you see the umpire touch both ears,
he did,
and he rubbed his fingers. But you know what he didn't do?
What?
He didn't smell them. He didn't smell his fingers.
Yeah.
Typically with these types of things, like Bengay or that's methyl salicytate that gives you that wintergreen smell, or you get icy hot, or Tiger Balm. Any of these things have odors to them. Yeah. Okay, and even after time it's going to dissipate. But if you rubbed your fingers on his ears, you should have smelled it.
You got to smell it. Yeah. Buck Showalter just called in. He said, I want Ed Wallace to respond to Citi Field.
Yeah, and I'll swab his ear. I have an instrument, actually. I have an instrument.
Gnarly.
Spicoli, all right. I have an instrument that it's called a photoionization detector. Okay, because the methyl salicytate and these creams, they're volatile.
Yeah.
These muscle creams, they're volatile. So it sucks an air sample in, and if that type of material is present, it will give me a reading above what is normally in the environment. And that would be, definitive that.
Well, we could have used you. If you were assigned to Citi Field last night, you could have pulled out your handy trusty bag and went out there and did that. But listen, Ed, you're starting to give me PTSD right now. I'm getting flashbacks from last night. So
I'm not a Met fan, but I was rooting for them, bro. I was rooting for them. I wanted to see a Yankee Mets Subway Series, but
you're a good man, Ed. Thank you for that. And I know you did check in, and I want to say Joey Brooklyn checked in with me too. Joey Brooklyn, he was live today at the Columbus Day Parade in Manhattan, right outside of St. Patrick's Cathedral. So Joey Brooklyn, he's got a great channel. Everyone should go check him out. He did a live today from the parade. He showed Cardinal Dolan, I believe, and several dignitaries that were on scene. I shared it. But Joey Brooklyn is a diehard Yankee fan, and he said to me, "Good luck, brother. I hope you guys win." So,
Yeah. Hey, Joey, did you get that cappuccino and the cannoli?
all right, listen, we did a lot of coverage. It was over an hour and 10 minutes. Look at this Cardinals, baby. Get out of here. So
here, look at this one. Did you see this one? Have courage and be kind.
God.
Ed, do you find yourself forensicizing a lot?
Yeah, he does. He does. He puts on his Tyvek suit and walks around his house gloved up. He's like, yeah.
Yeah, I wait for the big W to go up in the sky, and I come racing out with my my crime scene mobile.
This is how it cut. This is the sound you hear when he changes into his outfit. Whoa, Ed's here.
Step away from the crime scene.
Look who's here. Look who's here in the chat. We always get great guests that come in the chat. Timmy Acosta is in the building.
In God we trust, all others we poly.
Where is that thing? I have it right over here. But anyways.
Good man, Timmy.
Listen, folks, circling back to Cassie Carli. Listen, this is troubling. This is troubling to get these results back as undetermined. I don't really know many cases in the city of New York where we've had this. You know, the cuppy does exist, right? But usually when you have that, you have a bunch of great evidence to supplement. But I feel like in this case, what they wanted was straightforward cause and manner and the tox to come together, and that all didn't come together. You know, and the way I put this thing together is like these detectives and the medical examiner's office and everything, they wanted this to be what would be the perfect storm. You have cause and manner determined, and then you have some type of toxin ingested by the victim here. That didn't happen, and Ed and I were speaking very strongly about that. We thought, you know, he hit her with a needle of some sort or chloroform or something. This is not how it worked out, and it's very unfortunate, but we can't throw the towel in. Everybody in the chat here and a lot of people, I've seen so many different things, so many people chiming in different ways. You can't just throw the towel in and say, now this guy's going to get away with murder.
Well, let me just throw this little pearl of wisdom out.
I'm afraid.
Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. We may be right, and he may have done this. Okay, the way we said he did it. Early on, we were speculating based upon footage from the back of the restaurant and how the encounter occurred, that something like this occurred, and just because they didn't find it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Right. Yeah.
It just means they didn't find it.
Yeah. And I don't think that they're just giving up. A lot of people, like I said, a lot of people feel like, well, you know, this is the worst case scenario and we have nowhere to go from here. You know, we heard a lot of, listen, go back and watch the replay. And if you're not subscribed, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, where we have professionals in all different forms and facets of the trade. We've had forensic anthropologists, odontologists. We had our dentist, Larry Dobrin, I believe his name was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Larry Dobrin. What a great guy. And then we had our bug doctor from Perth, in Australia, Ian Dodor. Mm-hmm. What a great guy. And he actually subscribes to the channel and he leaves messages from time to time. I haven't seen Ian check in.
Good day, Ian.
Yeah, good day. But yes, so if you like all things true crime related from a police detective's perspective, consider subscribing to Ed and DutyRon. Go over to our Patreon, check out our Patreon, check out the channel memberships. There was some folks who gave away memberships, and there's Trish reminding us, Dr. Murray Marks. I mean, a handsome fellow. Who were they saying he looked like? I forgot the actor.
Oh, no, I want to go there. Mark Ruffalo.
We got to get on. We got to get Murray on the horn because I miss him, and I don't want to be the guy that reaches out to him. I'll let you because you're more professional than me, Ed. So reach out to him. We got to get him on the horn. We got to get him back in the studio. By a show of hands here, who wants to see Dr. Murray Marks from the Body Farm? He is the director, I believe, of the Body Farm, as far as I remember. Am I right?
You know how we catch Murray?
How do we catch him?
Okay, we put a bone on a fishing rod.
Oh, hell no.
Oh, hell, she's
Oh,
back.
hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. All right.
Ain't
listen.
nobody got time for that.
Yeah. Listen, guys, I want to wish everybody a good evening. I hope that you got some good, valid information from our guests, Barbara Butcher and Ed Wallace. I mean, these situations and these cases are difficult. There's Kara in the background. These are difficult situations, but you know, when we share these videos and we talk about this, we keep this case alive. We keep the potential for justice for Cassie Carli alive. We need to continue to speak about these cases. We need to continue the conversation. Leave us questions down below. We can't get to everybody, but we try our best to get to as many good quality questions as possible. So leave us a thumbs up and leave us some comments down below in the comment section, and we will see you guys on the next one. Ed, you got something to say, I think, right?
Yeah, you know it, folks. Stay safe, please. Stay prepared and watch your six.
Yes, and thank you so much for everyone joining and the replay viewers, the moderators, and everyone who's become a member. Thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless the world. God bless the United States of America. But most importantly, God bless each and every one of us here in the chat, but especially the victims of crime and their families, the Carli family, Cassie's sister, brother, father, and extended family and friends. We send you strength, prayers, and positive vibes.
Peace. Hey, did you guys see the moon tonight? Oh my God.
Oh yeah, I'm going out
you
right
see it?
now. I'm going out.
It's
I did.
unbelievable.
Yeah, my wife's been texting me. So I'm going to go out now in
All
my
right.
pajamas and go check it out.
All right.
Good night, guys. Thank you.
Bye.